The story begins in an adventurer's guild in the kingdom of Turquoise. A receptionist gave a sharp look at a man who was trying to register as a tamer. The man explained that being a tamer meant forming a contract with a monster from many different types that existed. The man registering confirmed this, adding that tamed monsters fought alongside tamers and provided support. The receptionist was pleased that the man understood the basics, but he questioned why the man didn't have a monster with him. He said it was impossible to register as an adventurer without one. The man claimed he could tame creatures called phantasmas and pointed to something above his shoulder. He introduced his fire spirit, Claire. However, the receptionist couldn't see anything and, growing irritated, finally lost his patience. When the man added that he had 2 more phantasma, the receptionist angrily told him to leave. The man, Kohaku, had received the divine job of Tamer. However, the monsters he could bond with were limited to phantasmas, a type that no one else could see or hear. Because of this, he was rejected by every guild he tried to join. As he walked away, other adventurers whispered behind his back, calling him an incompetent Tamer who lied about having invisible monsters. Kohaku couldn't hold back his tears. Claire, the fire spirit, started venting her frustration. She was angry that people kept rejecting Kohaku wherever he went. Kohaku tried to stay calm, saying it couldn't be helped, but Claire's patience was wearing thin. She hated the rumors calling him incompetent and a liar. Kohaku noticed her anger and told her she was getting upset on his behalf while he wasn't even worried for himself. He smiled and thanked her, his bright expression nearly dazzling Claire. Embarrassed, she blushed and told him to get angry for his own sake. Claire asked why Kohaku insisted on being a Tamer when he could easily pretend to be a fire magician. With her help, it wouldn't be hard to convince people. Kohaku refused to lie about his divine job. Claire sighed, frustrated that humans cared so much about divine jobs. As they walked home, Kohaku thought there was no way around it. They lived in a world where divine jobs ruled everything. A person's divine job decided their entire future, and Kohaku had no choice but to follow those rules. He believed that if he worked harder, he might one day achieve his dreams. Claire noticed the sadness on Kohaku's face as he opened the door. Inside the house, 2 phantasmas, Marionette Sufia and the divine wolf Fen, welcomed their master warmly. Kohaku greeted them back with a small smile. Sufia offered to take his robe while Fen asked how things had gone. Kohaku admitted he had failed again. Fen comforted him, saying they would be happy no matter where their master ended up. Kohaku paused, then quietly thanked Fen. Claire felt moved watching the scene, but it was quickly interrupted by Sufia aggressively sniffing Kohaku's robe. Sufia froze, pretending nothing had happened, but Claire called her out for burying her face in it. Sufia denied it, claiming it was all in Claire's imagination. Claire blushed and argued back. Watching the two tease each other, Kohaku smiled and thought they seemed to be doing just fine. Then Fen asked Kohaku what he planned to do next. Kohaku realized that every guild in the country had rejected him. After thinking for a moment, he asked if everyone would be okay with moving. He explained his idea of trying his luck in another country's guild. He figured rumors about him might already be spreading near the borders, so going to a faraway land seemed like the best choice. Finally, he decided they would head to the kingdom of Brumund. Claire remembered hearing about a special guild in Brumund that was only for Tamers. Fen said she would go anywhere Kohaku went. When Sufia heard this, she looked jealous, and Claire could feel her hostility. Sufia then asked Kohaku to take her, but her tone suggested she meant something else. Claire quickly cut in, saying she would go with Kohaku too. Kohaku felt thankful for their support but had no idea about the silent rivalry between the two girls. He then told them to get ready, as they would leave the next day. Later that night, Sufia went out to the backyard and opened a screen. On the other side, the worried faces of several individuals appeared. These were high-level phantasmas who had settled in the remote Turquoise kingdom. Sufia told them that her master had decided to leave Turquoise and move to Brumund. The phantasmas were shocked. They had worked hard to gain the people's faith and even believed in them as gods. They couldn't believe this news. Sufia tried to calm them down. She explained that her master had given up on the kingdom because it had failed to see his worth. Not only that, but the kingdom had pushed him so far that he chose to leave. Sufia asked the group if they had any regrets about the kingdom that had driven Kohaku away. In unison, they all said they felt no attachment to it anymore. The next morning, the king of Turquoise was shocked when they didn't receive a prophecy from Gaia, the god they were worshipping. Even though they had offered many gifts, nothing happened. Confused but determined, the king told everyone to keep their faith in Gaia and wait for the oracle. Suddenly, a servant ran into the throne room with alarming news. The guild's strongest warrior, known as the Sword Saint, had suddenly lost all their powers and skills. The king was stunned and thought it might be a mental issue, but the servant insisted it happened without warning. The king couldn't understand how a spirit's power could just disappear. Before he could process this, more servants rushed in with troubling reports. The country's water and crops had worsened, and even the saintess had lost her powers. Another servant reported that the guild's great magician was powerless. Others mentioned that the alchemist's abilities were gone. and the air had turned polluted, which allowed demons to invade the land. Overwhelmed by the disaster, the king broke down in tears. Meanwhile, Gaia suddenly remembered something, and another god asked her what was wrong. She admitted she had forgotten to say goodbye to the church. The god, clad in armor, dismissed her concern, saying it was unnecessary. He explained that the moment they left the country, its destruction was inevitable. He added that greeting the humans wouldn't change anything. Gaia agreed. The armored god revealed that he had also taken back the swords he had given to humans, saying a country that disrespected Kohaku didn't deserve them. He reminded the others to follow Kohaku and leave everything else behind. Kohaku and his familiars began their journey to a new home. After traveling for days and nights, they finally reached the capital of the kingdom of Brumund, Alex. Claire encouraged Kohaku to stay confident, assuring him that things would work out this time. With determination, Kohaku walked toward his new country, ready to start again. Kohaku went to the checkpoint and handed over the papers needed to prove his identity and enter the city. The guard saw that Kohaku was listed as a tamer and asked where his tamed monsters were. Kohaku froze for a moment and glanced to the side, where his phantasmas stood. As expected, the guard couldn't see them. To avoid trouble, Kohaku said he didn't have any monsters yet. Claire, who was with him, looked shocked. Kohaku figured it was better to seem inexperienced than to reveal the truth about his phantasma. The guard didn't make fun of him or ask more questions. Instead, he assumed Kohaku was just starting his journey and welcomed him warmly into the capital. As Kohaku walked through the city, he wondered if the guard thought he was strange. It was the first time anyone had spoken to him so kindly. While he was lost in thought, Sufia stopped him and pointed out the quickest way to the Tamer's guild. Kohaku praised and thanked her, and Sufia celebrated the compliment in her own cheerful way. Knowing that no one in this country knew about him yet, Kohaku felt confident he could succeed here. When he reached the Tamer's guild, he stood outside for a moment to gather his courage. Then he stepped inside and was amazed to see all kinds of monsters. The guild was lively and so different from the one in Turquoise. But suddenly the monsters around him froze and started trembling. The Tamers nearby looked confused as they tried to figure out what was going on. Kohaku started sweating when he remembered something important. Monsters could see his phantasmas. He thought back to a time when a small mouse-like monster had quivered in front of Sufia. Sufia had explained that phantasmas were the strongest type of monster, and other creatures were naturally terrified of them. Since monsters couldn't talk, they showed their fear by shaking. At that moment, the mouse-like monster's stomach growled. Kohaku noticed and felt bad for scaring it, so he gave it an apple. The monster looked puzzled at first, but Kohaku told it to go ahead and eat. The act of kindness moved Sufia. She thought it was wonderful that her master cared for all monsters, even the ones afraid of him. Back to the present, Kohaku went to register at the guild. The receptionist told him to wait for a moment. While waiting, he glanced around and noticed how scared the monsters nearby looked. Feeling bad for making them nervous, he promised himself he would leave quickly. A guild staff member named Saria soon approached him and asked if he wanted to register. Kohaku nervously said yes. Saria then brought out a strange object and asked him to touch it. Confused, Kohaku asked what it was. Saria explained it was a special crystal made just for the Tamer's Guild. It could show a person's Tamer job and reveal the types and number of monsters they could tame. This crystal was something only the Tamer's Guild had. Kohaku, still unsure, asked if it could really do that. Saria confirmed it could. Kohaku stared silently at the crystal and Saria noticed. She asked if something was wrong. Kohaku said nothing was wrong, but inside he felt deeply moved. He had been searching for something like this for so long, and now it was right in front of him. Behind him, the three phantasmas looked excited. Claire encouraged him to give it a try, while Sufia wondered if the crystal could detect them. Kohaku finally touched the crystal. Suddenly it glowed with an incredibly bright light. The phantasmas grew more excited, and Kohaku silently wished they would calm down. After a few seconds, the light faded. Saria told Kohaku to let go of the crystal. She noticed 3 golden lights coming from it and said she could use those to figure out his Tamer information. As she looked through the documents, Saria began to sweat nervously. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Then Saria's tone changed completely. She suddenly asked Kohaku, in an intense voice, if he was a phantasma Tamer. The people around them were confused by her reaction. Kohaku simply answered that he was. Saria realized she had made a mistake, so she brought Kohaku to the reception office to apologize. She knelt on all fours and formally said sorry for raising her voice in front of everyone. Kohaku told her it was fine and asked her to sit down and talk. Saria thanked him and took a seat. Kohaku asked why she had seemed so surprised earlier, since she must have known something about the crystal. Saria explained that the light on the crystal changes color depending on the type of monster it can tame. Red meant beasts, purple meant insects, green stood for natural creatures, black for dragons, and so on. However, the color of phantasmas had always been a mystery, until now. Kohaku then asked what this golden light meant. Saria shared that the golden color wasn't even mentioned in the instruction manual. She concluded that it must represent phantasmas and guessed that Kohaku was a phantasma tamer. Kohaku confirmed it, admitting he was indeed one. Saria got excited when she noticed there were 3 golden lights. She assumed Kohaku already had 3 phantasmas. Kohaku confirmed this and pointed to the corner of the room. Saria immediately got up to check it out. In the corner, the 3 phantasmas were watching Saria, looking confused. Suddenly, Saria started panting heavily and giggling while staring at them. The phantasmas freaked out and ran to hide behind Kohaku. Claire commented on how creepy Saria was acting, and Sufia even suggested they get rid of her. Kohaku told them to calm down. Kohaku called Saria over, snapping her out of her strange behavior. She explained that she was a monster enthusiast and couldn't contain her excitement over discovering a new species. Kohaku realized Saria was that kind of person, a true monster fanatic. Despite her excitement, Saria recognized Kohaku as a phantasma tamer, and Kohaku asked how he could prove it to others. Saria smiled confidently and said it would be easy. She suggested he battle their guildmaster. Just then, a woman, accompanied by her attendant, walked into the reception room. The scene shifted to Brumund's arena. Saria brought Kohaku to meet the guildmaster of the Tamer's Guild. The guildmaster, Tawa Irihim, introduced herself with a cheerful smile and asked if Kohaku was the phantasma tamer. Kohaku nervously admitted that he was. Tawa laughed and told him not to be scared, calling him a cute kid. Kohaku quickly corrected her, saying he wasn't a child and would soon turn 20. Tawa smiled and said he was still a kid in her eyes. Kohaku felt confused because Tawa looked about his age. Even though she appeared young and beautiful, Kohaku sensed something powerful about her. He remembered stories of Tamers who were stronger than their familiars, and he was certain Tawa was one of them. Kohaku respected her strength, but he couldn't help worrying about his familiars causing trouble. They surrounded Tawa, playing around her because she couldn't see them. Kohaku grew anxious since this was his chance to get a proper job. He knew he had to act, so he snapped his fingers, making the phantasmas disappear from around Tawa. Tawa looked puzzled and asked what he was doing. Kohaku explained that he had called back the ones hanging near her. Tawa then remembered that phantasmas were invisible to others. Kohaku was surprised but relieved that Tawa believed in him. Next, Tawa decided to introduce her own tamed creature. She raised her arms and gently called out a name, Crush. Kohaku looked up as a massive shadow appeared in the sky. While phantasmas were unseen and often doubted, dragons were visible and undeniable. To everyone, dragons were considered the strongest creatures in existence. When Tawa revealed her tamed monster, Kohaku quickly recognized it as a drake-type dragon. Tawa confirmed this and introduced it as the Black Dragon. Among dragons there was a ranking system and drake types were at the top. Dragons usually came in common colors, but black ones were considered the strongest because they were extremely tough and fierce. This made them true monsters in every sense. However, despite the intimidating description, the 3 phantasmas with Kohaku saw the black dragon as nothing more than a winged lizard. Kohaku asked if they thought they could beat it. Fen confidently said it would be easy. Sufia answered seriously that it wouldn't be a problem. Claire, however, joked that cutting radishes was harder. To everyone's surprise, Kohaku chose Claire to fight the black dragon. Sufia warned Claire not to embarrass herself and called her a bug. Claire just laughed and teased Sufia, saying she shouldn't be upset for not being picked. Claire stepped forward and Crush the black dragon began growling. Towa asked if Crush's opponent was ready. Claire called the dragon cute for trying to scare her, but Kohaku told her to stop teasing. Towa then asked about Claire's abilities. Kohaku introduced her as a fire spirit, but Towa hesitated, her expression making Kohaku nervous. Claire reassured Kohaku, saying everything would be fine and to leave it to her. Reluctantly, Kohaku decided to trust her. Saria asked if both were ready and they confirmed they were. She gave the signal and the 2 Tamers commanded their creatures. Crush attacked first, unleashing a fiery breath, but Kohaku stood unharmed. Tawa was shocked to see that Claire had created a powerful defensive barrier. It was surprising because a black dragon's breath was strong enough to melt steel. Kohaku explained that Claire was the most powerful fire elemental among the phantasmas and could neutralize any fire. Claire laughed and told Crush to bow its head. Kohaku silently hoped Claire wouldn't get too carried away. Tawa had expected this kind of capability from a phantasma. She ordered Crush the black dragon to attack, and it went in for a physical strike. However, Claire called them foolish and used a barrier to block the attack. Tawa was shocked to see a dragon's claws being stopped for the first time. Claire nearly lost control of her power but managed to hold on just in time. She felt relieved, though Kohaku decided she would give Claire a lecture later. Tawa then told Crush to put something on. Kohaku quickly figured out what she meant and told Claire to back away. A dark, murky aura suddenly wrapped around Crush's claws, and with one strong push it shattered Claire's barrier. Tawa praised Kohaku for making a smart move. Claire managed to dodge the powerful attack just in time. Both Claire and Kohaku recognized what was happening. It was enchant power. Tawa confirmed their guess. Enchant power was a special kind of magic that enhanced the body. Usually only humans could use it, but monsters could gain access to it in one specific way. They had to form a contract with a human who had that magic. This meant Tawa had enchant power. In a rush, Kohaku took their turn. Claire unleashed a powerful blast of fire, but it was useless. Tawa and Crush managed to dodge it by flying high into the sky. Tawa was amazed that a phantasma could block all their attacks and even had a fire breath as strong as a dragon's. She asked if fire spirits could use fire magic endlessly without limits. Kohaku confirmed it and explained that they could also control heat, making them experts in all heat-related abilities. Tawa was surprised and burst into laughter. She couldn't believe a phantasma could be that strong and admitted she still had a lot to learn. She landed back on the ground and asked about the other two phantasmas. Kohaku assured her that they were just as strong as Claire. Sufia and Claire started arguing, but Fen didn't seem to care. He was confident he was the best. While Kohaku tried to calm them down, Tawa turned to Crush for her opinion. Crush simply said she had no complaints. Tawa then reached out her hand and officially welcomed Kohaku as a hunter in their Tamer's guild. Those were the words Kohaku had been waiting to hear his entire life. This moment marked the first step toward achieving his dream. Not long after, Kohaku sat quietly on a sofa, looking around the guildmaster's office. He was surprised by how clean and organized it was, especially compared to the messy, alcohol-smelling offices of the male guildmasters he had visited before. Tawa soon returned with tea to serve. As she moved around, Kohaku couldn't help but notice how beautiful she was. He felt nervous because Tawa was the first woman to treat him kindly, apart from Claire and Sufia. Trying to calm him, Tawa told him not to be nervous and joked that she wouldn't bite like Crush. Kohaku laughed, but Tawa, with her serious face, claimed she wasn't joking. This left Kohaku frozen until she admitted it was a joke after all. Even so, Kohaku felt uneasy. He couldn't tell when Tawa was joking because her expression never changed. Nearby, Sufia was busy scolding Claire and Fen for sneaking bites of the cookies. When Tawa noticed the cookies disappearing, she asked Kohaku if the phantasmas were eating them. Kohaku admitted they were enjoying the cookies and apologized. Tawa didn't mind as long as they were happy, since she had made the cookies herself. Kohaku was excited to learn they were handmade, but his excitement turned to disappointment when he realized his familiars had eaten every single one. He couldn't believe Claire and Fen didn't leave him even a crumb. Just then, Sufia appeared out of nowhere like a ninja, holding Kohaku's portion of the cookies. Relieved, Kohaku thanked her, making it another victory for Sufia. When he took a bite, he found the cookie delicious. Tawa was happy to hear it suited his taste. After their relaxing break, it was time to get to the main reason for their meeting. Tawa handed Kohaku a letter, leaving him confused. She told him to open it, and inside he found a brooch. Kohaku was shocked. Tawa explained that it was proof he was now a member of their guild. However, Kohaku noticed the brooch was bronze, a level higher than the usual iron rank for beginners. When he questioned it, Tawa reminded him how he had fought Crush head-on. Because of his performance, he was granted an exception and started at the bronze rank. Kohaku sat silently, staring at the brooch in his hand. He remembered how he had spent 7 years trying to join a guild as a Tamer. People had always doubted him, calling him a liar because they couldn't see the phantasmas he talked about. No one believed him. But now, with Tawa standing in front of him and the brooch in his hand, he realized all his struggles had led to this moment. He had come this far thanks to his father's words. Without them, things might have turned out very differently. Seeing the look on his face, Tawa encouraged Kohaku to do his best. She assured him that, as the guildmaster, she would always support him and wouldn't let anyone criticize him. Her kindness overwhelmed Kohaku, and tears began to stream down his face. The phantasmas, concerned for their master, tried to cheer him up in their own way. Tawa, understanding how much he had gone through, gently patted his head and told him it was okay to cry if it would help lighten his heart. The phantasmas watched quietly as Tawa comforted Kohaku. Meanwhile, Sufia and Claire grew uneasy seeing another woman so close to their master. Kohaku asked them to calm down, assuring them that he was fine. Tawa told him not to hesitate if he ever wanted to lean on her for support, but Kohaku explained he couldn't allow himself to depend on others too much. Grateful for her thoughtfulness, he thanked her. Tawa then told him to stand as she approached and pinned the brooch onto his clothes. Kohaku froze for a moment, noticing her gentle presence and the faint feminine scent she carried. Sufia and Claire, on the other hand, were visibly uncomfortable with what they were witnessing. Afterward, Tawa asked Kohaku to look in the mirror. When he did, he stood still, overwhelmed by the sight of himself wearing the guild brooch. The phantasmas cheered excitedly for their master. Tawa explained that Kohaku was now eligible to take on quests, and directed him to Saria for more details. Kohaku promised to do his best, bowed respectfully to Tawa, and then left, feeling ready for what lay ahead. Saria congratulated Kohaku and said she hoped they could work together from then on. First, she asked if Kohaku knew how the guild worked. Kohaku learned that people in town would post requests and guild members would complete those tasks. Saria explained that these requests could be about searching for items, gathering materials, or even fighting monsters. Since Kohaku was still a bronze rank, he could only take on searching and gathering quests for now. She also mentioned that bronze members could deal with weaker monsters. Kohaku asked if iron-ranked members could do the same. Saria confirmed they could, but added that iron platers usually focused on searching and gathering too. Hearing this, Kohaku felt excited to start at the bottom and work his way up through the ranks. Saria then asked Kohaku if he was interested in fighting monsters. Although he was still a beginner, Kohaku said he wanted to try searching and gathering quests first. He thought there must be lots of people who needed help, and he wanted to assist them however he could, even if it was in small ways. Saria was surprised by his answer. It brought back a sad memory of her crying over her dying tamed monster. She had met other bronze-ranked members in the past, but they didn't seem like Kohaku. Most cared more about earning money than helping others. Saria told him he was a truly kind person. Kohaku noticed the sadness in her expression and wondered why, but before he could ask, Saria invited him to follow her to accept a request. She led him to a bulletin board and explained how it worked. The safer quests were posted there, while the more dangerous ones, meant for gold-ranked members and higher, had to be taken from the reception desk. Kohaku saw many gathering and searching quests on the board. After looking around, he decided to take a herb gathering quest. Saria guided him to confirm the application. At the same time, Tawa, the guild leader, got a report from her assistant that Kohaku had chosen a herb gathering quest for his first task. Tawa had expected this and smiled to herself. Watching from afar as Kohaku left the guild building, she wished him well. Kohaku, full of excitement, set off on his first quest as a new guild member. In the forest, Kohaku and his familiars searched for herbs to make recovery medicine. Claire, looking at the plants, wondered how they could tell them apart since they all seemed the same to her. Kohaku said it would be easy and asked Sufia for help. Sufia focused and activated a detection field in the area. Soon, Kohaku pointed out the glowing red grass and told Claire those were the herbs they needed. He asked her to fly around and collect as many as possible. Excited, Claire zipped around gathering the herbs while the others helped pull them out of the ground. After some time, Fen showed Kohaku a herb he found that smelled different from the others. Sufia explained it was a special mutated herb of a higher quality. Fen asked if he did well and Kohaku praised him. Deciding it was valuable, Kohaku separated the rare herb from the others. His familiars eagerly joined in to help. When they finished, Kohaku returned to the guild, where Saria welcomed him back and asked about the gathering quest. Exhausted, Kohaku admitted he had gained new respect for the iron platers who did this kind of task every day. Saria asked him to place the herbs on the reception desk so she could use her appraisal skill. Kohaku called over Fen and reached into the air, making bags appear out of nowhere. Saria looked confused, so Kohaku explained one of his familiars had carried the bags on his back. When Saria checked the herbs, her expression turned even more surprised. She carefully examined the herbs, especially the rare ones, and asked Kohaku how he managed to gather so many. Kohaku explained it was thanks to his familiars. Saria nodded, impressed, and remarked it was what she'd expect from someone with powerful phantasmas. As they talked, a guild member drinking nearby frowned while listening in. Meanwhile, Saria thanked Kohaku for bringing back a bag full of rare herbs, calling it an unusual find. Kohaku felt happy to help. Saria told him it would take some time to process the exchange and asked him to wait. Kohaku's familiars were happy that everything turned out well. Claire claimed it was all because of her, but Sufia disagreed and called her out for taking all the credit. Claire insisted that she worked hard by flying around, but Sufia argued it was her detection skills that made the difference. As their argument heated up, Sufia noticed a drunk guild member walking toward Kohaku. The man shouted that he couldn't accept someone weak like Kohaku as a guild member. He accused Kohaku of lying about being a phantasma Tamer. Another guild member tried to hold the drunk man back. Kohaku calmly said he wasn't lying and reminded them that Tawa had already approved him. The drunk man couldn't believe Kohaku was casually mentioning the guildmaster's name. The guild member holding him back kept apologizing to Kohaku, but Kohaku noticed the smell of alcohol coming from the angry man. The drunk guild member then challenged Kohaku to a fight using their familiars, claiming it would prove whether Kohaku was really a Tamer. Kohaku reminded him of the guild's rules against fighting among members, but the drunk man didn't care. Kohaku repeated the rules, but the drunk man assumed Kohaku was avoiding the fight because he didn't have any tamed monsters. Kohaku tried again to explain the rules, but then he sensed something dangerous behind him. His phantasmas were ready to attack the drunk guild member. Kohaku panicked, realizing his own familiars weren't following the rules. Seeing his nervous reaction, the drunk man thought Kohaku was just scared to fight. Suddenly, the drunk man was slapped hard by something and went tumbling to the floor. Claire was shocked to see Crush in his smaller form. Crush flew over to Kohaku's arm and let out a calm, confident growl. Kohaku couldn't help but think Crush looked really cool. Just then, someone walked in and asked what was going on in her guild. Tawa greeted Kohaku and with a serious look asked what was happening. Kohaku quickly realized she was upset and explained the situation. After hearing everything, Tawa announced that Kohaku was truly a phantasma Tamer, just as skilled as her and Crush during their fight. She then told the drunk guild member to bring any complaints directly to her. When the drunk member tried to respond, Tawa asked if he was questioning her decisions. The man couldn't say much and just apologized. Even Kohaku felt the tension from Tawa's words. He said he didn't mind the rude comments, but Tawa firmly replied that she was handling it to prevent similar problems in the future. She reminded everyone about avoiding fights between guild members. Kohaku quietly pointed out that this rule applied to Tawa too. She paused for a moment, then said his words were interesting. Realizing he might have said too much, Kohaku quickly covered his mouth to avoid more slip-ups. While Tawa was still talking to the drunk member, Saria returned and asked if something had happened. Kohaku brushed it off, saying it was nothing. Saria then confirmed the results of his task. Since Kohaku brought back more than required, he was rewarded with 10 silver coins and 5 copper coins. Noticing the separate currencies, he asked if he could exchange copper coins for silver ones. Saria explained that 100 copper coins could be exchanged for 1 silver coin, and the same applied to gold and platinum coins. She then surprised Kohaku by handing him 4 gold coins as payment for the 40 kilograms of superior herbs he had delivered. Saria asked if Kohaku wanted to continue his quest, but he decided to call it a day because he needed to find an inn first. As they walked through the streets, Claire pointed at some food stalls and asked Kohaku if she could try something. Sufia commented on how Claire had been eating non-stop since they left the guild and called her greedy. Kohaku moved around the city to ask about prices. He told Claire to hold off on eating for now because their main goal was to find a place to stay. He promised to get her some food later. Then, he asked Sufia to pull up a map with affordable inns nearby. Sufia projected a map onto a nearby wall, showing an inn that cost 50 copper coins per night. The price included breakfast and dinner. Kohaku wondered if the price was normal, and Sufia said she thought so. Kohaku figured that a bronze-plate adventurer who could handle basic quests could just afford to stay there. Since the deal included 2 meals a day, it seemed reasonable, so he decided to check out the inn. When they arrived, a little girl greeted them warmly and welcomed them to Fleur Inn. Kohaku asked if there were any available rooms, and the girl said there were. She asked how many nights he planned to stay. Kohaku said he would pay 10 silver coins for now. The little girl thought for a moment and guessed he planned to stay 40 nights. However, her mother quickly stepped in and corrected her, saying it would actually be 20 nights. Both the mother and daughter apologized for the mistake, but Kohaku said it was no problem. For registration, Kohaku gave them his name. Afterward, the mother asked the little girl to guide him to his room, number 205. In his room, Kohaku handed his clothes to Sufia as he got ready for bed. Claire glared at Sufia, asking if she planned to do any sniffing again. Sufia paused for a moment before saying she wouldn't, but Claire didn't believe her because of the weird pause. Kohaku sat quietly on his bed, gazing out the window. His thoughts drifted to the kind people he had met in this country, so different from the ones in the previous place he lived. Claire broke the silence by asking what the plan was for the next day. Kohaku said he wanted to take some iron gathering requests in the morning and, if there was still time, work on elimination requests in the afternoon. Claire then suggested they focus on monsters with bones if he picked an elimination request. She mentioned wanting something like a dragon, but Kohaku laughed, saying that was impossible for someone like him, a bronze plater. They both laughed and kept chatting about their plans. Meanwhile, outside the town, a black-haired man learned about a phantasma tamer joining the Tamer's guild. Curious, he turned to his partner, Asur, and asked for his thoughts. Asur simply said he wanted to meet this tamer soon.